On April 23rd, I turned on the news to find that the world had lost its damn mind. I was being told that the president was suggesting to the people that they should inject disinfectants or bleach. Something smelled fishy. And so I went to work. And here I present to you my findings. Who better to get us started in our journey of discovery than our old friend Jake the Snake?
President Trump, meanwhile, continues to make bizarre public statements, ones at odds with medical and scientific expertise. The president last night suggesting that, quote, injecting disinfectant could be used as a treatment for coronavirus.
All right, let's take a look at the quote. Let's type up the entire thing. Okay. Let's put in fewer words. Well, he probably quoted one word, right? I think I've stumbled upon the least accurate quote in history. But then again, we don't come to Jake for accuracy. We come here for the flavor.
Quote, injecting disinfectant could be used as a treatment for coronavirus.
He made that outlandish, ridiculous comment yesterday that people could inject themselves potentially with household disinfectants as a cure for the coronavirus.
As far as ingesting
Oh, he recommended ingesting disinfectant. Okay, that's a different matter. Let's look that up. That's quite the ironic mistake to make for somebody who wants to hold others responsible for their rhetoric.
various products that could kill you potentially.
Everybody can watch it with their own eyes and see the president use words like very powerful when describing the possibility of how these injections could somehow get infused into your system and clean out whatever virus there is. I mean, people can see this.
We're looking for Trump calling his suggestions very powerful tools in fighting the coronavirus. So what he actually asked is if very powerful light could be used to fight the coronavirus.
I mean, people can see this. This is doublespeak. This is ridiculous. Describing the possibility of how these injections could somehow get infused into your system and clean out whatever virus there is.
In addition to the shenanigans around injecting disinfectants.
He came up with this crack idea that he got from some person who talked to 5 minutes ago about the disinfectants being ingested into the body.
The president then was asking Dr. Birx about whether heat and light might somehow wipe out the virus, a claim she debunks. The president then was asking Dr. Birx about whether heat and light might somehow wipe out the virus, a claim she debunks.
Boy, I don't know where the hell to make the likes of you, but I hope they're out of business.
The President of the United States suggested, in all seriousness, from the White House briefing room, that maybe people should try to ingest disinfectants of some kind, or maybe light, some kind of light that you could get inside the body, because that could work, right?
They've had to push away scam ideas about bleach, scam ideas about inserting lights into people.
We all witnessed just yesterday of him talking to his own coronavirus task force about doing research into injecting bleach, disinfectants into people, somehow cleaning them from the inside because disinfectant works on tabletops and things like that.
The president suggested that the coronavirus could be treated by injecting or ingesting disinfectants like bleach. The remarks alarm pretty much anyone who knows that drinking or injecting bleach can kill.
Miss Cabrera nailed them both for good measure. Latinos really do work the hardest. Okay, but at least they were being classy about it, right? Considering they always chastise Trump for his rhetoric.
No.
But
no, you're an idiot. You're a moron, is what she's thinking. Okay? And you can see it on her face. And I'm really sorry, Mr. President, that you put her in that position. This really reputable, credible, unbelievably prepared woman who has spent her entire life getting ready for a crisis like this. And you're a joke. And you try and make a joke of the entire situation.
People have been begging, Mika, people have been begging the president to get focused.
Before we get to take a look at Trump's speech, let's have some context about how this all got started. Take it away, Jake.
The White House press secretary and the president's factotums in the right-wing media claimed that the press was taking President Trump's comments out of context, which we were not. He was talking to an official of the Department of Homeland Security who had been talking about how sunlight and disinfectants helped to kill the coronavirus when it was in the air and on non-porous surfaces, not when it was in the human body.
To understand Trump's comments, we have to watch the relevant bits of presentation from the Homeland Security official.
Our most striking observation to date is the powerful effect that solar light appears to have on killing the virus. We've seen a similar effect with both temperature and humidity as well, where increasing the temperature and humidity, or both, is generally less favorable to the virus. We're talking about non-porous surfaces, door handles, stainless steel. As the temperature increases and as the humidity increases, with no sun involved, you can see how drastically the half-life goes down on that virus. So the virus is dying at a much more rapid pace just from exposure to higher temperatures and just from exposure to humidity. If you look at the fourth line, you inject the sunlight into that, you inject UV rays into that. The same effects on line 2 at 70 to 75 degrees with 80% humidity on the surface, and look at line 4, but now you inject the sun, the half-life goes from 6 hours to 2 minutes. That's how much of an impact UV rays has on the virus. Very significant difference when it gets hit with UV rays. Bleach will kill the virus in 5 minutes. Isopropyl alcohol will kill the virus in 30 seconds.
Now here's what's stuck in Trump's mind from Bill's presentation. I've simplified the language the way a layman like myself would likely retain it. The sun or UV rays are deadly to the virus. Disinfectants, even more so. And trials were conducted by injecting. After taking in that information, Trump gets on stage with questions.
So I asked Bill a question that probably some of you are thinking of if you're totally into that world, which I find to be very interesting. So supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number in the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
To make this a sport, I'll assume what the media does. That lots of people watching this are gullible and stupid.
I can't. I simply can't.
The easiest to debunk is the claim that Trump suggested citizens do any of this themselves. Let's look at his language. He asks whether any of this can be researched, and he concludes by saying all of it will have to be done through medical doctors. On top of that, we see him repeatedly turn and ask Bill Bryan and Dr. Birx whether any of this is applicable. Does that look like someone who is recommending people do any of these things in their homes? The media want you to believe that there are people who will only take in the words disinfectant and injection and leave out any of this context. Ladies and gentlemen, I propose to you that it is impossible to safely communicate anything to someone at this catastrophic level of cognitive failure. And that not only would they be taking Trump's words out of context, but they will do the same when they watch media cover the same non-story. The next point raised by the well-paid reporters I've shown is this. Trump asked his team to look into injecting disinfectants as a possible cure. This argument depends entirely on how biased you are. Allow me to set the stage. Trump has just uttered the phrase that the media is reporting as injecting or ingesting, which is entirely made up, disinfectant. And now let's travel to a time of wonder, 180 seconds into the future.
President mentioned the idea of cleaners, like the bleach and isopropyl alcohol you mentioned. There's no scenario that could be injected into a person, is there? I mean,
No, I'm here to talk about the findings that we had in the study. We don't do that within that lab, at our lab. So
are we simplifying
through
too
injection?
much?
We're talking about almost a cleaning and sterilization of an area.
Right.
Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work, but it certainly has a big effect if it's on a stationary object.
Okay.
Jonathan asks explicitly, is there a scenario where we would inject disinfectant? And look at Trump's reaction when faced with that proposition. Why would the media cite his words as a suggestion to inject disinfectants and completely ignore his answer to exactly that preposterous interpretation? Tapper says we did not take him out of context. What is more out of context than a guy telling you, no, that is not what I mean, when you ask him before he's changed his mind due to any backlash to his statements? And as if that weren't enough, Trump says explicitly, is there something like that could be harnessed by injection? When you say you want to have a beer, you don't say you want to have something like a beer. You say, I want a beer. If Trump was as stupid as the media would like him to be, he would have simply said, is there a way we can inject disinfectants or bleach into the body rather than use like to mean something as effective as those chemicals, but different in other ways? In what ways? Different in that they don't kill you.
Fellas, I've been thinking. Exercise is great for the body. Is there something like that for the mind?
Sure. Puzzles, studying, reading, learning a new language. You can't lift dumbbells with your brain, idiot.
The mere fact that this narrative exists should tell you something about how intellectually shallow and lazy the media have become, and how little we've held them to task. Their entire reason for existing is to seek out and report the facts. And look how spectacularly they've failed. Look at this. Close to half of the people I watched completely made up a word he never said, to make him look cartoonish and preposterous. Being a reporter should not be the easiest, cushiest job in the world. This isn't reporting. This borders on creative writing. They rip and tear at Trump for being a source of division, yet their lies have turned so many Americans against others because they can't fathom how the other half could support someone who recommends drinking bleach. They could just report Trump's mistakes, but no, they want everything he says to be controversial, even his benign musings. So they'll manipulate and twist it until they have some new abomination in their hands and then stare at it in disbelief, point and say, can you believe he said that? No, I can't believe you said that. You created this Frankenstein's monster out of brain-dead takes, and you now point at it with demented outrage. They're supposed to be better than one flawed individual. They're an entire goddamn institution. They're supposed to be an honest watchdog. Instead, they're lazy, stupid, incompetent, dishonest, and malicious. Their mission is to tell the American people the truth, and they lie. But you know what? I get it. All's fair in love and war and politics. You despise the guy and you're looking at everything he says and does through a filter of hate. So you latch on to anything, no matter how tenuous, because the end justifies the means. But know that when you show us that you've shed all pretense of objectivity and fairness, you've also forfeited your credibility and any prestige that comes with the noble profession of journalism. The essay you've been reading is by legendary American investigative journalist Carl Bernstein, who's unfortunately joined into the feeding frenzy of this idiotic narrative. As you'd expect from a partisan hack like his friend Woodward, Carl vomits a bunch of synonyms of the word bad.
Carl, what's your take on that?
First of all, that's no defense of the president. That's just excuse making. And second of all, that he is reckless, he is dangerous, he is malfeasant, which is to say he is using the powers of the presidency
Thanks, Carl, but I already own a thesaurus. Now, what is it that my boy Jake the Snake promised me before I went down this road?
The White House press secretary and the president's factotums in the right-wing media claimed that the press was taking President Trump's comments out of context, which we were not.
I wonder what the standard for spreading evil in the world is in Jake's mind. I don't want to end this video on this note. Instead, I want to pay homage to someone who gives me hope for the future. Without further ado, FDA Commissioner Stephen Hahn.
Just from a medical standpoint, what the president said, first of all, about treating the body with light and somehow bringing the light inside the body, where do you fall on that?
So I think the data that were presented at the press conference today were really important in terms of what kills the virus. And I believe the president was asking a question that many Americans are asking, which is, okay, this is what kills the virus. It's a physical agent, in this case UV light. How could that be applied to kill the virus in, for example, a human being? We have plenty of examples in medicine where light therapy has been used for treatment of certain diseases. So it's a natural question that I, as a doctor, would have expected to hear from someone as a natural extension of the data that were presented.
But just from a medical standpoint, I mean, there's people who are listening, obviously, to the President of the United States and take what he says very seriously. Are you concerned at all from a medical standpoint of somebody, injecting themselves with a disinfectant or, hearing what the President said and trying to experiment on themselves, thinking that might be something worth looking at? I mean, is there any evidence about taking a disinfectant that's used, on the table where I'm sitting and using it internally? That doesn't seem like a good idea. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent point you're making. We certainly wouldn't want, as a physician, someone to take matters in their own hands. I think this is something that a patient would want to talk to their physician about. And no, I certainly wouldn't recommend the internal ingestion of a disinfectant. Again, this is a conversation that occurs every day in America between a patient and a doctor. I've been in that position. I'm sure Dr. Gupta has as well. And it's really important that we address them because people will ask those questions of us.
Well, Dr. Hahn, I think we should be clear, though, that the idea of doing some kind of UV light therapy, which is sometimes used for local issues in the body, but not for a widespread viral infection, and the idea of injecting disinfectant, I mean, those questions may be getting asked, but there's absolutely no merit to that. That doesn't need to be studied. You can already say that doesn't work, right?
And I think, Sanjay, that is exactly what a patient would say to a doctor, and that would be the answer of the medical experts to anybody who answered that question.
It does not work.
Okay, let me move on.